Disclaimer. Hey Cupcakes, this podcast is meant to bring awareness around sad true crimes that has happened in our history in a subtle but entertaining way. This commentary is only my opinion based off of the information that I have gathered about these sad true crime stories exposed to me from the depths of the internet and documentaries that I have watched. Keep in mind that we were not there at the time of these crimes being committed, so all of this is really alleged at the end of the day. Feel free to do your own research to form your own opinion of what happened in the lives of these characters and victims that I am about to share. Some things may be too graphic for some listeners and viewers. That's why this is strictly for mature audiences only, as the unveiling of these crimes may have negative impact on your psyche. There will be talk about murder, suicide, descriptions of the scene of a crime, rape, assault, and more around these subjects. Feel free to exit at any time if this becomes too much for you. Warning, do not repeat or attempt any crimes listed in these stories, dumbass. And with that being said, let's get into the video.
I understand perfectly.
Murder.
Hey Cupcakes! Thanks for listening to my mom's true crime podcast.
Hello, good evening, Cupcakes. How's it going, guys? It's me, Sprinkles, and thank you for coming over here being nosy once again for an all-new episode of Wine for Crime. I don't know what time it is where you are right now or what you're up to over there, but over here, it's midnight. The house is quiet, candles are lit, the dishes are clean, and I'm in my silk pink robe with the lights off getting ready to tell you the most shocking true crime stories that I have found on the internet thus far. So if you could just set the mood where you are at right now and quiet things down for me a notch to welcome me into your space, I promise I'll take my shoes off at the door. But honey, when I leave, I promise you'll be coming back for more. Son of Sam.
As far as I'm concerned, that was not me. I hate that name. I despise that name, that moniker, Son of Sam. That was not. That was a demon. That was a demonic entity that I was serving in. That was just a break from reality. I thought I was doing something to appease the devil that he had taken over my mind and body, and I just surrendered to those very dark forces.
Are you ready?
You're listening to
Wine for Crime.
Hey, my bloody cupcakes, and welcome back to another episode 4 of Wine for Crime. I hope you got your feet up and you're relaxing as much as I am, and you're all ears tonight because boy, do I have a story for you, cupcakes. It's taken me a while to get here and through this story and bring it to you guys because I didn't know when I added Son of Sam to the list, but his life really triggered a lot of emotions for me, and I had to deal with some unhealed trauma that I must have just pushed deep down inside of me. Especially uncovering his trauma as a child and the guilt and the shame that was placed on him at such a young age. Man, it had me over here in tears trying to understand how he must have felt growing up. I'm what you would call an empath, so I feel very deeply and I look at things as multidimensional. I don't just take things as face value. No, sometimes I find myself really taking on others' guilt and emotions. I don't want to get too much into this, but my firstborn passed away as a baby and I carried the guilt with me since. Not only that, but then I think about all the horrible things that I've done in my life, knowingly and unknowingly. But one thing about it is that I always had supportive people in my life who loved me and who always gave me great advice. I've been very blessed, I can say, but not all of us have family like that. We don't always have someone to guide us back on track when we're losing it. Some of us don't even have friends at all. No one who ever really truly loved us, or if we did, is still here in the flesh today. Oh man, some of us blindly go down a very dark road because we want to belong, like gang members. Yeah, it's very wrong what they do, no doubt about it. I'm not saying that they're saints, but the real root of why someone joins a gang is because they want to belong to something and they need guidance. And sometimes you get into the most trouble you can get into because what you are really screaming for is for attention. And these acts of violence are just really some people's way of saying, hey, look at me, I'm hurting others because I'm hurting inside. Can someone ask me if I'm okay? So yeah, that's what I've been going through this week. Just a string of emotions. So after you hear this story, I want you to slow down and start asking people, hey, are you okay, bro? I'm here for you if you need me. 9 times out of 10, 5 times out of 10, they just might take you up on that offer. And you may just be the superhero to save a lot of innocent people from dying today. So try and do that. Go be a superhero today. Okay. Whew. Ladies and gentlemen, this is Wine for Crime. Pour yourself a drink. I got mine. Watermelon Moscato over here. Yeah, pour yourself a glass. Get cozy. Turn the lights down low. I am here with another episode. So let's start the show. David Richard Berkowitz, originally born Richard David Falco, AKA Son of Sam, and AKA the 44 caliber killer, was brought into this world on June 1st, 1953. So that makes him a Gemini. And you already know what we are dealing with here. Not one, but 2 personalities. And the second personality will very quickly evolve into becoming a menace to society. As most Geminis are very sweet and loving, but don't get on their bad side because you will immediately regret it. Now, before we start on David, I think we should wheel it back just a little bit and pour out the tea on his parents. You'll be shocked to learn that David came out of a pretty drama-filled situation, which I believe set him up for doom from the start. Mom, Rebecca Broder, Betty for short, and Dad, Joseph Kleiman, Joe for short, were both Jewish people. But Betty's family was super religious and did not tolerate any foolishness, especially foolishness like sleeping around and being involved with a married man. Yes, Joe was married, but before we dive into that, let me tell you a little something about Betty's situation before becoming the side chick. Like I said, Betty betrayed her family and married a Gentile, as they say, by the name of David Falco, an Italian man. The family became very upset upon learning this and did not accept this union whatsoever. This stamped her as being the black sheep of the family and caused her great rejection amongst her relatives. The couple ignored her family's approval and chose to stay together and even opened up a business together. It was a fish store. The fish store was actually doing pretty good, and so were they. So good that they ended up getting pregnant and welcoming a baby girl to the mix. Her name was Rosalind. Once Rosalind arrived, the two started to become very shaky as David ran off and abandoned their new little family for another woman. So not only did he abandon his family, this man done abandoned the damn store too. Betty had to pick up the slack and try to keep the business afloat, but just couldn't seem to do it all by herself and decided to shut the store down. I'm thinking the fish store wasn't her original idea because it didn't even seem like she tried that hard to keep it open. But let me stop, because maybe it just reminded her too much of him, and she probably just was depressed that he left her high and dry with their new child. So, when she closed down the store, she looked to some relatives for support with her struggles during this tough time. Now, some family members continued to disown her because of her marriage choice, but some did show up for her and assisted her during this difficult time and embraced her back into the family. Betty ended up on welfare while trying to raise her daughter on her own as best as she could. Some time passed and she eventually crossed paths with Joseph. Joe saw that she was single and living alone and thought, this is just my type. He was a hardworking guy that provided for him and his family that he already had, so he didn't mind doing the same for Betty and her daughter. Betty and Joe had gotten so close and couldn't bear to hide their love anymore, so he introduced his new mistress to his wife and kids, along with Rosalind. So they all just sort of turned into the Brady Bunch over here and definitely turned into a really good soap opera drama as time passed. This good show had its run though and ended up being on air for about 20 years. Dang, that's a long time to have an affair. Now, one day, Betty was shocked to find out that she was pregnant. I don't know why she was so shocked. I mean, you know what you're risking when you use no form of contraceptive, okay? People kill me, especially with a married man, Betty. Come on. She soon after told Joe she was pregnant and he flipped his shit, okay? That man was so cold to her, he point blank told her to get rid of it as his first response. He already had a family of his own and it's already bad enough that he has her on the side and her child, but to bring another child into this world with his last name by his mistress wasn't going to happen. He told her that she needs to put the baby up for adoption. Now, that was the thing back then. So many babies were being put up for adoption by society standards and family standards. I noticed that too, even with Eileen from 2 episodes ago. She had to put her baby up for adoption, because if the baby is going to bring shame, guilt, or confusion to the family, then it just had to go. And that's exactly what ended up happening. But not before Betty popped her shit. They got into so many heated arguments over this. There was even a time when Betty jumped on Joe's back, beating him in the head because obviously he wasn't getting it, so she had to physically beat it into his thick skull. Duh, that makes just so much sense to me. I get it. But she would beat him in the head while saying, I want to keep this baby. I want to keep this baby. Doing all that while David Jr. developed in her tummy. I think you should know that there have been studies on when a child is in the womb, it has the ability to sense traumas. So they sense traumas, they sense loud noises, they sense emotional trauma, rejection, agitating surroundings, peace, serenity. All of these affects the child's development in the womb during the second trimester. It has an effect on the individual, okay? They also discovered that a baby that senses rejection in the womb grows up to have death wishes frequently and demonstrates frequent amounts of self-sabotaging behaviors. Sit on that for a minute and let me just pour myself a drink because this is some deep shit, okay? Think about that, if you will. You see it? You see what's happening here? Okay. That's so good. Moving on. Well, there was a lady in their neighborhood that heard about Betty having to put up her baby for adoption. Well, she skedaddled right on over there to tell them all about this Jewish couple she knew, who was about the same age as them, 42 years old at the time. Wow. That's too old to be having your first child. Well, you know what? I'm 34 and I don't have the patience. And I just think 42? Nope. Not doing it. Well, this Jewish couple, they were looking to adopt a baby boy. And this lady just thought this was perfect. This was such a perfect match. So she told Betty, and Betty turned around and told Big Daddy Joe. Joe said, this is perfect. We will make the switch a couple days after the baby is born in the hospital. And they did just that. Betty had the baby boy and ended up naming him Richard David Falco. Richard Falco being Betty's ex-husband's name, the previous husband who abandoned her and their daughter Rosalind. Yeah, Joseph is so messed up. He didn't want the baby boy to have his name, let alone his last name. So he urged Betty to name him after the last known man that she was with. Knowing dang well that man didn't have anything to do with this, okay, Joe? So here we have Richard David Falco. So, okay, the adoptive parents, Pearl and Nathan Berkowitz, arrived at the hospital a couple days later to pick up their new bundle of joy. They decided to give Richard a fresh start and rearrange his name and make it David Richard, along with their family's last name, Berkowitz. So, ladies and gentlemen, I pronounce to you now David Richard Berkowitz. Oh crap, as if the world needed another terrorizer named David. Remember David, aka the toy box killer, a couple episodes ago? How could we forget that name? I'm starting to just think David as a first name for a baby boy is going to be a no-no in my book. So, anyway, they took David home and introduced him to a life of middle class. The couple worked hard and earned their living as hardware store retailers. Nathan, his adoptive dad, didn't really show interest in establishing a relationship with their new son. He even went so far as to call the adoption a total mistake. Pearl, on the other hand, was the complete opposite. She really loved David and worked hard on developing a deep, close-knit bond with her new baby boy, David. At about 4 or 5 years old, his new parents sat him down and told him the story all about being adopted. He was confused and they told him,
David, sit down, we need to talk to you. Well, when you were born, your mom died. Your mom died because she had complications at birth, David. And your dad wanted to take care of you, David, but he just couldn't. He just couldn't do it by himself. So, he gave you up for adoption, and that's how we came to be your new parents.
Again, back then, it was very common to give up your children for adoption, and it was advised to the adoptive parents by these doctors and agents to give the standard answer. Mom died while giving birth, and dad couldn't do it on his own. The adoptive parents never meant any ill will. It was just a typical response back then. David would later say that he remembers being very, very shocked and feeling numb, trying to process it all. He had a lot of questions. Who's my dad and who's my mother? They said,
"Oh, we don't know, David. We don't know. All we know is that she died while giving birth to you, and we took you in because we wanted a son so very bad, and we love you, David. We love you. We adore you, David, and we're just glad you're here with us."
A part of him thought, my mom died while giving birth? What did I do wrong? Remember, he's 4 or 5 years old, right? And at this very young age, he didn't know much about childbirth. All he knows is that to make a baby, mom has a big belly, some time passes, and bam, a baby pops out. He probably never even witnessed a pregnant woman up close before, him being so young. So naturally, he thought to himself, why did my mom die? Did I hurt her? Did I kick her while I was coming out? Did I scratch her? Did I poke her on my way out? Then he freaked out and thought, I killed my mom? I killed my mom? I killed my mom?
Oh no, David, don't worry. These things happen. It's very common.
Over the years, he lived with the thought that somehow, some way, his mother died while giving birth to him, and that he was responsible for her death. He just couldn't get that out of his head. This is where he was mentally and emotionally. He thought a lot about it and thought of himself as a bad boy. I killed my mother. Look at me. He carried this guilt with him at such a young, impressionable age. This was devastating for David and caused him to struggle with his identity and self-worth over the years. Then, when they said that his dad didn't want him after his mom gave birth, he felt like, wait, my dad is still out there. I want to meet him. Maybe he changed his mind. Maybe he wants to meet me too. But then thoughts of rejection crept in as he thought about his father being so angry at him and not wanting to meet him because he blamed David for killing his wife. And maybe hunting him down like, you stupid kid, I'm going to get you. Remember, he's like 5, 6, 7 years old growing up thinking like this. This evoked a string of terrible behavior issues out of him. It was revealed to David later on in his life that he was born with ADD and hyperactivity disorder. He was a wild, energetic kid, jumping, throwing things, throwing his stuff all around the room, waking up 5 a.m., tossing all his toys all around, just hyper. In school, so energetic, running up and down the hall, loud, disruptive. He was just a terrible student, always getting in trouble, just a thorn in his parents' neck because he was so out of control. And now we are starting to see the Gemini in him taking over. Oh, the Gemini man have it the worst. Oof. He had so much energy that when school ended at 3 p.m., he would just take his books and run 5 whole blocks all the way home. One day, while running so fast home, not paying attention, he actually got hit by a car. The car bumped him up in the air and David went flying. Turns out he was okay, but he did suffer some head injuries from it. But this is just an example of how wild and loose David was as a child. It should be noted that after this incident is when David developed a fascination with arson. He began setting fires all around the neighborhood on separate occasions. Not only that, but he also engaged in petty robbery. School was hell. He hated school. He thought the teachers hated him too. Despite his above average IQ levels, wow. David would lose interest in school and would either skip classes or pretend to be sick. Disciplinary problems arose. One teacher actually wanted to hold him back in the 3rd grade, but his mom was having it, and she marched right up to that school and pleaded to the principal. The principal heard her out and decided to go against the teacher's wishes and granted him the promotion to the 4th grade. David struggled to finish elementary, but he did it. Not too long after entering junior high school is when his adoptive mother, Pearl, died of breast cancer. Rest in peace, Pearl. Now, that was a good woman, a loving, patient, and dedicated woman. I'm glad she got to receive her dream of having a son before she passed away. Oh my God. But I don't think she would have been too fond of how he turned out in the end. So I'm glad she left on this note. Since this loss of his mom, David decided to work towards getting in touch with his birth mom. He came across the Adoptees Liberty movement. This organization helps people that were adopted get in contact with their original parents. And in 1975, around Mother's Day, he finally found his natural mother, Betty. He also was shocked to learn that he had a half-sister too, Rosalind. They all hit it off pretty good after meeting a few times. Betty would cook, he would come over to chill, and him and the ladies would just hang out. One day, Betty ended up telling David all about what really happened and told him the truth about her relationship with his father and how he pressured her into giving him up for adoption. This is pretty scary to me because here you have a child that you gave up to the system and he comes back to find you and learns that you gave him up but didn't give up your other child. I would imagine someone being like, dang, you gave me up and you didn't come look for me not one time, like I was nothing to you. Learning this could have negative effects on someone's psyche. You never know what this kid is mentally under right now. Then he meets you at your home. I just think they should have just met in a public place, at least the first couple of times, because you never know if he's out for revenge or had rage deep inside of him that could possibly be let out on you. The more you reveal what happened, like, are you thinking? It would have been her just keeping Rosalind for me. That would have just sent my Gemini moon self right over the edge. Anyway, learning this was devastating for David's sense of identity and self-worth. He soon began to purposely lose touch with Betty from then on out. He did keep up with Rosalind a little longer, but ended up cutting her off as well. Also, after the death of Pearl, he started to become a latchkey kid. Suffering from depression, his dad worked a lot and rarely saw him. The loneliness had gotten worse, especially after his dad got remarried and moved the family to Boynton Beach in Miami, Florida. And now he was looking for a way to escape his life with his new family. He did just that and joined the Army, the U.S. Army. After completing basic training, he was shipped off to Korea and he served a total of 3 years. In June 1974, he had had enough and was able to get honorably discharged from the military. And soon after, he returned to the Big Apple, New York City. Back in the Bronx, David exhausted a lot of aggression. He would even egg on petty fights with his neighbors around his apartment buildings. During this same year, David began to pick up old fascinations with fire again from when he was younger. In this year alone, David set off 1,500 staged fires in and around the Bronx. He did this and eagerly transcribed all of these events in his journal. And he often referred to himself as the Phantom. Boy, this man got so many names. He got more names than Diddy. This is ridiculous. Around this very same time is when the Phantom enrolled in Bronx Community College in efforts to make something of himself with his new life, but began to pick fights with his peers on campus. Wow. He can't go nowhere without picking fights with people, innocent people. He discovered later on in his life that the reason he was truant in school, unruly, and demonstrated self-destructive behavior patterns is because he lived with false guilt, and which caused him great grief and self-sabotaging efforts. Anytime he was doing good in school, he would start messing up. And anytime he was being a good boy, he would just get into a fight. He would do this because he felt like he didn't deserve a good life. He killed his mother, remember? Why does he deserve a good life? He didn't deserve to live. That's what he thought. All from him growing up thinking he was bad because he caused his mom to die. Now, it's now 1975. And as if picking fights with people, setting random fires, and keeping up with his studies weren't enough, David started to become freshly obsessed with his newfound studies. Right out of the Satanic Bible by Anton LaVey, which is the same man who started the Church of Satan. Okay, don't turn me off. Don't turn me off just yet. I know as soon as I mentioned the word Satan, y'all was like, hell no, I'm out of here. I'm not into this shit, but stay with me. Let's learn some things, okay? Okay, great. If I didn't lose you there, but to push things even further, he was also convinced that he was actually possessed by evil and demonic spirits. Whew! All right, now, in November of this year, 1975, is when he sat down and decided to write a handwritten letter to his dad. His adoptive dad, that is. I don't want you thinking he got in touch with his real dad. Nope, he's still a deadbeat. He expressed to his father that he was feeling depressed and that the world was getting darker. This could go on record as being the first time he would reach out to someone involving them on his mental state. I assume he never received a response, and loneliness must have crept in with it being the holidays and all, and realizing that he has no real family, because let's just dive in on this one for a second. His adoptive mom, the one who really cared for and adored David, is gone. She's passed away. His real father never and still doesn't want anything to do with him whatsoever. Yeah, he got back in contact with his birth mom, but A, that's him putting in the time and finding resources to locate her, not the other way around. And B, yeah, birth mom is sweet and kind, and yeah, she can cook her little Jewish ass off, but come to find out, she never really wanted to give him up. But at the end of the day, you still did, mom, you still did. She could have just gotten a job and broken free from that man, especially since he had a wife and a family. Girl, and when you realize he was man enough to risk impregnating you, but not man enough to be a father to his child he created with you, he was never leaving his wife, silly goose. No. You were always, and I do mean always, going to be second choice, baby girl. You and whatever came from you would never amount to the tiniest fucks given when it came down to it. And now to think about it, where is this man now, still at your old age? Oh, still with his family and you alone? I hope you didn't really actually think this was going to be a triangle of love for the rest of your lives. No way. At some point, people are going to stop and snap out of La La Land and get back to the bigger picture, being that big picture that's framed in his living room. You know, the one on the wall right on top of the fireplace? Yeah, that big picture that's framed with him, his children, and his wife. That is the big and only picture Mr. Joseph Kleinman will and ever be concerned about. So you set David up for failure the second you laid down with this very married man and conceived him. Swallow that, Missy. Then we have his sister. But the hell with her too. At this point, she's getting thrown away with the mom. Not to mention his adoptive father. Wow, the men in his life are just the best, aren't they? Well, he never really wanted David either, saying the adoption was a mistake. Remember that? That man never really put any real effort into his little boy, and I'm assuming when David poured his little black heart out in the letter he wrote him, he never got a response. Plus, no real friends, because remember, he argued and picked fights with him. This is just a recipe for disaster. And just 1 month later, after writing that letter on Christmas Eve, all of the darkness sort of caved in on him and drove him to murder. David grabbed a knife and attacked a woman who came out to be unidentified as she was reportedly leaving a grocery store. This is so random. Why you went through all of this in your life to result in making a random decision of stabbing an innocent, frail, and defenseless woman while struggling carrying her groceries, David? I don't know. See, I can identify with this because the thought has crossed my mind many times before. I'll be coming out of a grocery store and I'll be like, wait, what if someone tries to attack me, rob me, rape me, or something? I don't know. But I'm always randomly thinking that every so often. But then I'm like, no one's going to bother me. Look at me, I'm struggling. I have all these random groceries. The cart is heavy. I can barely steer straight with one hand while I'm holding my purse, checking my receipt, moving the stray hairs out of my face from the wind blowing, causing me to barely see where the heck I'm going with the other hand. No way, it's just too much of a hassle to bother me with a possible murder while I'm clearly struggling over here. No way would someone just want to interrupt the chaos I got going on over here. But I guess I'm going to have to rethink that, because now I see there are crazies out here that apparently don't give a damn about me and my inconveniences. Well, David would go on to stabbing her several times before she was able to literally fight for her life and escape him. She did survive the attack though. Since that attack didn't result in an actual murder, David still had a thirst for blood, so he set out to locate another victim. But this time, he had in his mind that he wasn't going to let her get away. While still out that night, remember it's Christmas Eve. Christmas Eve, David. I guess you work nights and weekends and holidays too, okay? He stumbled upon innocent 15-year-old Michelle Foreman. Michelle was a dark-haired, small-framed young girl, 15 years old, who was stabbed a total of 6 times before she too surprisingly escaped and fled to safety at some nearby apartments. She survived the attack, but she did have to be hospitalized for an entire week because of how severe her wounds were. It is now 1976. Popular film Rocky, starring Sylvester Stallone, was just released. The Apple Computer Company is just formed, and the theme from Mahogany, Do You Know Where You're Going To, by Diana Ross filled the airwaves. January 1976, the next month after the stabbing of the 2 women, David picked up and moved to a new home he would rent in Yonkers, located in New York. That didn't last long because a couple of months later, he moved again to an apartment this time because he couldn't stand to hear his landlord's dog barking. The barking was so bad that David actually had suicidal thoughts over it. He would come to say that this dog's bark was so terrible because the bark telepathically commanded him to kill women. I told y'all he was hanging with Satan now. Now dogs are being possessed. But even when he moved to a new place, that didn't stop him from getting away from barking dogs because his new neighbor also had a dog who barked. This convinced David that this was a sign from his new friend Satan really commanding him to kill women. That dog started to drive David crazy as he battled these coincidences in his head. He would eventually have no choice but to kill the dog himself by using a Molotov cocktail and a gun. And for those who don't know what a Molotov cocktail is, it's like a glass bottle, so maybe like a beer bottle or something, where you fill it with flammable liquids sealed with a cloth wick. You light it up and the substances inside the bottle spreads flames and the fuel burns. So then you take the bottle and you would throw it on whoever or whatever your target is. So he didn't just shoot this dog, he also lit his ass on fire too. That's how bad he wanted the voices to stop. One important fact right now is that the dog owner's name was Sam Carr. Remember that. He convinced himself that Sam Carr must be possessed by Satan himself, as this was the entire inspiration behind his new alias, Son of Sam. You see that? Sam Carr, Son of Sam. Okay, see, now you're with me. Okay. So we were the Phantom when we were doing little petty crimes like fires everywhere, but now the gloves are on. You know how they say the gloves are off? Well, for David, the gloves are on, meaning he's about to do some real damage out here in these streets and give the people a reason to remember his name. You would have thought by killing a dog that would have ended all these intrusive thoughts, right? I guess not, because taking on this new persona and upping up the ante to a new way of killing, well, because he took a look back at all his other attempts to kill, you know, how he killed those two women, and he wasn't very satisfied with the way they did not end in a murder. So he threw away that messy idea of stabbing someone like crazy to result in death and took on a new approach. He collected himself a whole slew of guns, and by 1976, he was ready to kill. So here we are, July 29th, 1976. 18-year-old Donna Loria and 19-year-old Jody Valenti were just sitting, talking in Jody's car. As they wrapped up the conversation, Donna opened the door to exit the vehicle. And that's when she was shocked to see David rapidly approaching her. She was so frightened that before she could take a breath, David blasted 3 shots into both of the panicked women. One entered straight into Donna's head, instantly killing her. The second one hit Jody's thigh, and the third bullet missed the 2 women completely. Woo! That's some scary shit. Hey Cupcakes, real quick. If you are enjoying this audio, scroll down real fast and leave a review of what your impression is right now on this story. After that, be sure to send this to at least 5 people who you know would most definitely enjoy this bedtime story on their way to sleep. Okay, back to the story. Thanks. Although Jody got hit in the thigh, she was luckily able to escape and run to police after David had left the scene. So looks like David was so amused that he actually got his first kill, and it actually worked this time, that he fled away with such the rush before he made sure the other girl was dead and leaving a witness. Jody was able to remember what David looked like even in their brief encounter, so she was able to supply the police with a full description of the shooter. The description didn't result in an instant capture because it looks here like David was able to repeat the same very event just a few short months later. On October 23rd, that very same year, David was at it again with his shenanigans. His next attack, which involved the couple Carl De Niro and his girlfriend Rosemary Keenan. Oh, that's so cute. I never heard the name Rosemary as a first name. That's really cute. Wow. So Rosemary Keenan, by the way, they both were dark-haired beauties, just like Jody and Donna. So it looks like David has a type here. Wait, David had dark hair as well as his mother. Maybe he had a vendetta against his mother. That's why all his victims look the same. Because I can't figure out why he just kept going after brunettes all the time. I don't get it. So Carl and Rosemary were just chatting away, and Rosemary Carr, because yes, she's an independent woman and she has her own whip. Yes, ma'am. So they were talking and carrying on, and who comes out the blue rapidly approaching the vehicle? You guessed it, David. Damn, I'm glad I wasn't alive back then, because that's literally one of my favorite things to do is sit in my car. I'll be on my phone, I'll be on my computer, I'll be eating. Hell, sometimes I may even take a nap in the driveway. So I would have been a goner for sure. So I guess I gotta look out for doing that too from now on. Just like me coming out the grocery store, because it's crazy. It's like David out on the prowl. Damn, I can't do nothing these days. David quickly approached the passenger's side, holding up his gun, ready to shoot. He quickly emptied out his gun, managing to shoot Carl in the head. Oh my God, what is it with you with this head? And completely missed Rosemary again, leaving a witness. Woo! And this started to become his MO. He would shoot innocent victims while they sat unsuspectedly inside their cars. Well, until April 17th, 1977, still at the murder scene of Alexander Esau and Valentina. Oh, that's cute. Wait, Valentina Siriani. Oh, that's really cute. Okay. The son of Sam decided to spice things up and leave a handwritten note for the police to find, taunting them and personally identifying the mastermind behind these killings, stating in the letter. See, this is the problem with killers. Like, they start getting so cocky and comfortable, and then now they want to make a name for themselves. Like, they want to be popular. They want to be famous. Now he want to talk to the police, taunting them like, you really have your nerve, and I can't wait till they catch your little ass. Now, I'm going to read the letter. I'm going to make it as fast as I can because this letter literally makes no sense. I don't even know why he even took the time to write it. I hope he wrote it before he even came to the crime scene, because if you sitting there writing this, that's a lot of time. You're bound to get caught. So I hope he wrote it before he got to the murder scene. So here's the letter. Please take in mind that Sam, son of Sam, David, Phantom, whatever he want to call himself, he has issues. I told you he's serving his Lord and Savior Satan at this time. So he has babble mouth. So just take in consideration he's not all there right now. Here we go. I am deeply hurt by you calling me a woman hater. I am not, but I am a monster. I am the son of Sam. I am a little brat. When Father Sam gets drunk, he gets mean. He beats his family. Sometimes he ties me up to the back of the house. Other times he locks me in the garage. Sam loves to drink blood. Go out and kill commands Sam. It continued behind our house, some rest, mostly young, raped and slaughtered. Their blood drained, just bones now. Papa Sam keeps me locked in the attic too. I can't get out, but I look out the attic window and watch the world go by. I feel like an outsider. I am on a different wavelength than everybody else, programmed to kill. However, to stop me, you must kill me. Attention all police. Shoot me first. Shoot to kill or else keep me out of... What? Shoot to kill or else keep out of my way or you will die. Papa Sam is old now. He needs some blood to preserve his youth. He has had too many heart attacks. Ah, me, hoot. It hurts, sonny boy. I miss my pretty princess most of all. She's resting in Our Lady's house, but I'll see her soon. I am the monster. Basil. Okay, I ain't even gonna say this because I feel like it's a chant or something, like something gonna happen if I say it. I don't want to say it. I love to hunt, prowling the streets looking for fair game, tasty meat, the woman of cream. Tasty meat, the woman of queens are prettiest of all. I must be the water. I think he meant say it must be the water. I must be the water they drink. I live for the hunt. My life, blood for Papa. Mr. Borelli, sir. I guess that's the head officer in charge. I don't want to kill anymore. No, sir, no more. But I must honor thy father. I want to make love to the world. I love people. I don't belong on earth. Return me to Yahoos. I think he meant Yonkers. To the people of Queens, I love you and I want to wish all of you a happy Easter. May God bless you in this life and in the next. And for now, I say goodbye and good night. This man is off his rocker, Sam. What the hell was that about? This don't make any sense at all. I thought y'all said he was an above average IQ type student. This sounds like my 6-year-old wrote this. We're good, Sam. We don't need any more letters from you. But this is the first time he referred to himself publicly as the son of Sam, and the media quickly replaced the name that they had given him, which was the .44 caliber killer, with this new title. He went on to taunt the police, writing more letters, and they would pick apart these letters and give it to the media to publish in efforts to dissect them and to quickly locate him. The public and the media urged him to turn himself in, and with the release of the similarities between his victims, being women with long dark hair, This would cause a panic and had women buying wigs, dyeing their hair, anything they had to do to not appear to be a brunette. The salons were all booked up and the stores sadly sold out of wigs. Luckily for me, I can make my own wigs, so I would have been just slinging them wigs right off my stoop. So, with everyone in a frenzy and an understood hysteria, the police quickly put together an official task force that consisted of 300 men working day and night, purely dedicated to tracking down the son of Sam. So, you're not the only one working nights and weekends, Mr. SOS. They are officially on your ass now. Did I mention it cost the city $90,000 a day to put all this together? Yeah. He carried all of this on from July 1976 to July 1977, so a whole year. And although being attacked with Stacy Moskowitz, his last actual murder of his career was ended with Stacy Moskowitz, leaving Bobby Villante with only severe injuries. Now I'm gonna need you to come in closer because we're about to wrap this case up, okay? Here we go. On August 9th, a woman by the name of Cecilia Davis was out walking her dog. She noticed a police officer ticketing a car across the street. And after the police officer left, she spotted a man who appeared to be the owner of that car holding something dark in his hand, while at the same time giving her a threatening look. Yes, Cecilia was a dark-haired woman walking around her neighborhood freely with not a care in the world, knowing dang well that there is a killer out here that has a taste for women that look just like her. But nonetheless, this is her neighborhood, and god darn it, if she want to walk her dog while being a brunette, then god darn it, that's what the hell she gonna do. Cecilia quickly hauled ass inside her house. I hope he didn't see which house that she went into. Oh my god, I have a feeling that I have a feeling that he did. I have a feeling that he watched her go right inside that house and look right through the blinds. I can just see it. I know she just peeked through the blinds, make sure he was still there. She got inside and immediately called the police about this man and his dirty looks. The police were right on it and started pulling up all the cars that were ticketed that day. And with her describing this yellow Ford Galaxy, they were able to connect it to the owner, who was David Berkowitz. We got you. We got you. I don't want to call her a Karen, but sometimes being nosy pays off. You know, look at that. Now, the police had already been wanting David for his involvement with another crime, and they also already suspected him of being the son of Sam, but now we have an exact radar on him. The next day, why the next day? Why didn't they show up while he was still parked out there when she called? Like, what? Well, the next day, the police showed up at David's apartment and they found all type of stuff to incriminate him with. They found a gun there and unsent letters threatening the head of the Son of Sam task force in his car. They couldn't go any further without a search warrant, so some of the officers left to go get that, and while they were gone, David actually tried to leave his apartment. He tried to escape. He really tried it. He was promptly arrested by Detective John Falatico. They got some interesting last names in the Bronx. He was charged the next day with the second-degree murder of Stacy Moskowitz, his last known victim. But David wouldn't actually be sentenced until the next year in June of 1978. And that is where he received not one, but 6 consecutive life sentences. Now, this man is still alive today and he's still in prison. He's been up for parole multiple times, but keeps denying being let out because he has turned his life around and he has decided to leave Satan alone and serve Jesus instead. He has become a born-again Christian. In prison, he's being a model prisoner, praying, loving, and mentoring other prisoners. This was very interesting to find out because you don't hear this every day. And this is what got to me with this case. What killer do you know that actually has turned their life around and feels guilt and shame for what they did? I was having a hard time with this one because, like I told you, it takes you through a string of emotions. What I can say about this man is that he needed help a long time ago. Guidance, support, understanding, a therapist, to say the least. All of this could have very well been prevented. You know, he says in interviews that he was possessed. Do you believe in possession? Do you think that he is really sorry for his acts? I do, you know. You should see him on the interviews. I mean, go check it out. Go on YouTube, check out his interviews. He did a multitude of interviews with different, I don't know, is he trying to be famous? I don't really know, but he has done so many interviews. And he's still alive today, so maybe he has more in store. I don't know. I think they said that it's a special on Netflix about his life story. I'm going to check it out. I didn't check it out. I should have checked it out before I did this, but I'm going to check it out after this. This man is just like it looks like he's a good guy. He looks like your typical God-fearing grandpa, so soft-spoken, and he looks like he would never hurt a fly, let alone 6 women. And I know him being remorseful doesn't take away from the fact that he is a confessed and convicted killer, and these were real people, innocent victims at the end of the day. It's just not right, but I am glad that I brought this case to you today, just to give some diversity to our lineup. I doubt that any other killer on our list will ever feel guilt and shame about what they did. Nope. They did that shit and they meant that shit. Look at Eileen. She said she don't feel bad about not one man that she killed. She said they got what was handed to him. So say it with me. She did that shit and she meant that shit. Thank you guys for hanging in here with me. I know this was a long one, but I had to deliver the facts, okay? I don't play. I be digging. I try to bring y'all things y'all never heard before. I told you my purpose of having this podcast is to humanize these murderers and give you both sides of the story. Hell, all sides of the story, so that you can see how this person came to be a murderer. So next time, thanks again for listening. I'll see you here again next Wednesday. I'm your host, Sprinkles, and this is Why the Club. Still can't get enough? Neither can I. That's why you should drop what you're doing right now and go follow Wine for Crime on Instagram, TikTok, and YouTube for more. Become a part of our growing members-only Wine for Crime community. There, you'll be the first to hear about new episodes and lives, with lots of merchandise to really make it official. Once you join, you're mine now. You won't ever need another true crime podcast again. You might as well write your name in blood.